In the shadows of Johannesburg's bustling streets, a silent war was raging, a war not fought with armies, but with kidnappers, syndicates, and ransom demands that shattered lives. And at the heart of this underworld stood one man, feared, hunted, and untouchable. His name, Mauro Mucambe Jr., a Mozambican national, branded a kidnapping kingpin. For months, he was the phantom law enforcement couldn't pin down, until one fateful night, when the hunt reached its deadly climax. Mauro Mucambe wasn't just another suspect. His name carried weight, spoken in hushed tones from Maputo's business circles to Johannesburg's underworld. He had built a reputation not through charisma, but through fear, methodical kidnappings that left scars on every family he touched. Since August 2024, police in Mozambique had struggled to pin him down. Each time they closed in, he slipped away, leaving behind terrified families, ransom demands, and silence. The kidnappings were always the same. A wealthy businessman pulled off the street, a frantic phone call to a family within hours, a cold, distorted voice on the other end demanding millions, pay quickly or lose him forever. Families lived on edge, counting hours, counting cash, never knowing if their loved ones were already gone. Those who paid saw their relatives returned, shaken and broken. Those who hesitated often never saw them again. By early 2025, investigators believed they were finally closing the net. But then, Mucambe's trail crossed south of the border. In Pretoria West, a Pakistani businessman was taken outside his home. It was swift, clinical, just like the others. Witnesses said the man never stood a chance. Within hours, his family received the call, the same distorted voice, the same impossible demand. For detectives, the pattern was undeniable. This was Mucambe. He had expanded his reach, moving his empire of fear into South Africa. And now the stakes were higher. Families lived in terror, every phone call a reminder of the thin line between life and death. Police knew they were racing against time. Every second mattered. Every delay brought the risk of another body in the morgue. The manhunt for Mauro Mucambe had entered a new phase, and it was about to test South Africa's law enforcement like never before.
Behind every kidnapping, there was a system, a network so carefully constructed that authorities believed it rivaled the sophistication of organized crime cartels. Mucambe was not a lone wolf. He was the architect of a syndicate that thrived in the shadows of Mozambique and South Africa, feeding off fear. Intelligence reports revealed that his group worked in layers. Foot soldiers carried out the abductions, swiftly snatching targets in broad daylight before vanishing into back alleys and safe houses. Middlemen handled negotiations, calling families from untraceable numbers, their voices disguised by static and distortion. And at the top, pulling every string, sat Mauro Mucambe, untouchable, insulated by money and loyalty, bought through intimidation. For the families, the ordeal was hell. The rules were always the same. Pay the ransom in cash, no police, no hesitation. Any sign of resistance was met with silence, and silence, everyone knew, meant death. Those who complied often received their loved ones back after days of torment. Those who faltered or refused risked never hearing a voice again. Law enforcement on both sides of the border faced the same frustration. Witnesses were too afraid to talk. Victims who returned alive spoke of blindfolds, guns, and locked rooms, but nothing that could identify where they had been held. Every trail ended in dead ends, and all the while, Mucambe's reputation grew. By January 2025, whispers spread in Johannesburg's criminal underworld. The ghost of Maputo was in South Africa now. His network had crossed the border, and with it came the same dread that had haunted Mozambique. detectives realized that they weren't just dealing with an ordinary criminal. They were facing a machine, one that thrived on secrecy, fear, and the silence of its victims. The challenge was clear. To stop Mucambe, they would need to dismantle an entire network. But first, they had to find him, and finding him meant putting themselves in the crosshairs of one of the most dangerous syndicates Southern Africa had ever known.
By late January 2025, South African authorities had zeroed in on Johannesburg. Every clue, every whispered lead, every fragment of intelligence pointed to the city's northern suburbs. It was here, in the affluent sprawl of Fourways, that detectives believed Mucambe was hiding. The operation began quietly. Unmarked cars blended into traffic. Plainclothes officers sipped coffee in busy parking lots, their eyes fixed on doorways and gates. Every movement was recorded. A face here, a license plate there. The picture was forming slowly, but with each passing day, the certainty grew. Surveillance teams reported men moving in patterns, never the same route twice, always changing cars, always looking over their shoulders. Houses were rented under false names, and cash deliveries were made at odd hours. It was a network living under constant paranoia. But the pressure was building. A ransom drop tied directly back to a safe house. A middleman spotted entering the same Fourways townhouse more than once. Soon the whispers solidified into intelligence. Mauro Mucambe was in Johannesburg, protected by armed guards, living like a fugitive king. Still, the danger was immense. Officers knew that one wrong move, one leak of information, and Mucambe would vanish again, just as he had in Mozambique. Patience was the key. Surveillance tightened. More agents joined the watch. For the first time in months, law enforcement felt they were no longer chasing a ghost. They were closing in on a man. The decision came swiftly. Intelligence confirmed Mucambe's presence in a Fourways townhouse. There would be no ransom drop, no further negotiations. It was time to act. In the early hours before dawn, tactical units assembled. Bulletproof vests were strapped on, weapons checked, radios crackling with clipped commands. The convoy rolled out in silence, headlights dimmed, engines humming low. Fourways was still asleep when the police arrived. Streets lay quiet under the orange glow of street lamps. Tactical officers moved with precision, surrounding the property. A final command was whispered through the radio. Then came the thunder. Doors splintered. Shouts erupted. The crack of boots on tile echoed through the house. Inside, chaos ignited instantly. Armed men opened fire. Officers ducked, shields raised, returning bursts of gunfire that lit the walls in strobing flashes. Glass shattered, furniture splintered. The calm suburban home transformed into a war zone. At the center of it all, Mauro Mucambe refused to surrender. Witnesses later said he fought like a man with nothing to lose, firing until his weapon clicked empty. But the storm was one-sided. The firepower of South Africa's tactical police overwhelmed the resistance. Minutes later, the house was silent. When the smoke cleared, Mucambe lay lifeless on the floor. The man who had evaded capture for months, who had haunted families across 2 countries, was finally finished. News of the raid spread quickly. By morning, headlines across South Africa and Mozambique carried the same name. Mauro Mucambe, dead in Johannesburg. Families who had lived in fear for years exhaled for the first time, even as many still grieved loved ones lost to his syndicate. At the Fourways property, investigators worked through the wreckage. Files, phones, cash bundles, and unregistered weapons painted a picture of the empire Mucambe had tried to build in South Africa. Each discovery confirmed the scale of his reach and the damage he had caused. For law enforcement, the operation was hailed as a success. but it came with sober reflection. Syndicates like Mucambe's rarely die with one man. Networks fracture, lie low, and often regroup. The battle was not over, but a chapter had closed. And yet, in the silence that followed the gunfire, there was a strange sense of finality. The man who had once seemed untouchable, whose name was whispered in fear, had been cornered. Mauro Mucambe, the kidnapper who built an empire of terror, could not escape forever. Mauro Mucambe's reign ended in a storm of bullets. His story, a warning to those who live by ransom and fear. But the question remains, how many more shadows lurk in the underworld of Johannesburg, and who will be the next kingpin to fall?